So we all know Utah fans. Tomorrow was supposed to be the Holy War. Utah and BYU meeting up at Rice Eccles Stadium before COVID got the season canceled. But that had Cole and I thinking, who really is Utah football's biggest rival? Obviously, out of conference, hands down, it has to be BYU. There's no one else you could compare. But who is the in conference rival for Utah? There's a lot of options and a lot of ways you could go with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So BYU, definitely the out of conference. No question. Even though Utah dominates that rivalry, in the 100 meetings, Utah leads the series 62 wins to BYU's 32. It still is such a great matchup because they're, historically, it's the two best programs in the state of Utah. Close proximity. There's that religion factor. Both schools having a high population of LDS students. Both schools started by members of the Latter-day Saint faith. And there's also something else for me that really makes a rivalry. And so I met this guy, this BYU football player, a few months ago. He is from California, but he played in the late 90s, early 2000s. And he didn't understand the rivalry. So his first year playing against Utah, he says he's in the locker room and there are guys shaking. There are guys vomiting. They've got the runs. And he goes, "What's the big deal? Well, what is this?" And they'll look at him and they say, "Oh, yeah, you're from out of state. You don't know what's going on here. We're playing Utah." And so that for me is what makes a rivalry so great is the fact that it creates anxiety. I mean, everybody's a little anxious before they play, right? But the fact that you're shaking, that your heart's racing, and for me as a fan, it's the same way. So that for me is why BYU is the out of conference rival for Utah.
Yeah, and also you got to factor in the fans. The fans are intense with this game. There's smack talk, which you get in every rivalry, but sometimes the smack talk between BYU and Utah fans can get really intense. There's so many superstitions both teams follow. BYU, they have to saran wrap their cougar statue that's on campus because they're always afraid that it's going to get vandalized. Utah fans, you don't wear navy blue or any shade of blue the week of the game. There's so many superstitions. And some of my favorite memories as a Utah football fan have been from that Holy War game. They're so iconic. You can't, and also Utah there's no one that Utah plays consistently every single year that you could consider a rival out of conference. It has to be BYU. But that brings up the question is, in the Pac-12, who's the rival? Because, Cole, you and I both agree it's not Colorado. Proximity in this case doesn't make a rival. Rumble in the Rockies is it's not a rivalry in my opinion. Sorry, Jason. But it's not you. It's Arizona State for me. Arizona State is Utah's biggest in-conference rival. Those games are chippy. Those games are always tight. They're close. Arizona State fans and Utah fans, they go at it on Twitter also before the games. There's no way that it's not Arizona State.
The Utes struggle against the Sun Devils big time. Mm-hmm. And the rivalry for the conference for the U has got to be USC. 18 total meetings. It is a 2-1 for USC, 12 wins to Utah's 6. But despite that, this is one of the games that the Utah fan base really gets up for. USC is one of the all-time greatest football programs in history, and so I think it means a lot when Utah is able to knock them off. And the games are so close. The teams have played 9 times since the U joined the Pac-12. And of those 9, 4 of those have been decided by a single possession. And I think that's really what creates that rivalry is, the blood is pumping, hearts racing, and it's everybody, the players, the coaches, the fans. And it comes down to the last play of the game, like Utah a couple of years ago, I believe it was 2016, where they won on that last pass of the game. They were down 21-7. They come back and win 28-27. It's the last pass of the game, last play of the game, and they win. And everybody goes nuts because, oh my gosh, we just beat USC.
Yeah, and I get that, and I understand that you could say that Arizona State's not a rival just because Arizona State has had Utah's number in years past and in seasons past. But also, there's just so much tension between these two fan bases. Also, you think about it on like the recruiting side of it, Utah and Arizona State consistently go after the same kids. Utah and USC go after the same kids as well, but sometimes like it's if Utah loses a recruit to USC, it's still a big deal, but it's not as big of a deal as if Utah loses a recruit to Arizona State. Arizona State has to be Utah's in-conference rival. I remember the last 2 years. So when we went down to Tempe in 2018, they went the all white uniforms, the white helmets, the white jerseys, the white pants, and they said, "Oh, we're gonna go icy in the desert." And even though we lost, it was a pretty fire uniform combo. But the next year, when Arizona State came to Utah, they were like, "Oh, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna go icy for the mountains." And then they got destroyed, and everyone was poning them on Twitter because they thought they were gonna do icy in Utah, where it snows, and they don't have snow in Arizona. So I understand where you're coming from with USC it being a lot. It's more back and forth than the Utah Arizona State game. And even though I personally circle both games on my calendar, I always get more nervous when Utah plays Arizona State than when Utah plays USC.
Well, I think you have to look at it from the opposing side. I don't know that ASU hates Utah as much as USC hates Utah. And I think it's because ASU just hates Arizona a whole lot more than they hate the University of Utah. To me, I think that ASU sees Utah as, definitely a game that they circle. It's a battle, but I think USC looks at Utah, and I think we're kind of becoming. I think we're creating that reputation of the team that they themselves would expect to beat a lot. But the tides have started to change. The last couple of meetings, I think out of the last six to seven meetings, it's pretty even. It's Utah with 3 wins, USC with 4, I believe. So I think the dominance by ASU over Utah is what breaks it for me as far as being the rival. But the fact that Utah started to really pick it up against USC and to split these games back and forth over the last few meetings, to me, USC is that greatest rival for Utah.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we both can agree on is that the Pac-12 South for the last handful of years it's been decided between Utah, USC, and Arizona State. Those 3 teams are the ones that are consistently being able to put their teams in a position of success. And I think having ASU as Utah, like saying that ASU is Utah's rival, it makes me more excited for South games because even though I said last week nothing good happens when Utah goes to the desert, there's been some really iconic moments from when Utah has went to Tempe. But I think, like I said again last week, Utah can't get over the hump of beating the Trojans in the Coliseum. And I think until we can do that, I'm not going to say it's a rivalry because they just can't win. They can only seem to win at home. And in my opinion, a rivalry is you're going to win back. It's going back and forth. You can win either at your home stadium or away.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. And it'll be interesting to see going forward how these matchups continue. But I think that the most important thing that you said there is the Pac-12 South. It seems to be a battle between Utah, USC, and ASU. And so I think there's these competitions, these supposed rivalries are only going to get better from here.